First contact and cultural clash. The vast expanse of space had never seemed so small to Captain Aria Chen as she stood on the bridge of the Earth's first interstellar vessel, the ESS Curiosity. The ship's viewscreen was filled with the swirling, iridescent hull of an alien craft that dwarfed their own. After centuries of wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. Status report, Aria commanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Lieutenant Raj Patel's fingers danced across his console. The alien vessel is holding position, Captain. No signs of weapons charging or shields activating. They seem to be waiting. Aria nodded, her dark eyes never leaving the screen. Open a channel. Let's see if our universal translator is worth the hype. The communications officer, a young ensign named Zoe Williams, took a deep breath before tapping a series of commands. Channel open, Captain, broadcasting on all frequencies. Aria straightened her uniform and cleared her throat. This is Captain Aria Chen of the Earth spaceship Curiosity. We come in peace and seek peaceful communication. For a moment, there was nothing but the soft hum of the ship's systems. Then, a voice unlike anything they'd ever heard before filled the bridge. It was melodic yet discordant, like a symphony played on instruments they couldn't begin to imagine. Greetings, Earth vessel. We are the Zarquin Collective. Your presence here is unexpected. Aria exchanged glances with her first officer, Commander Jack O'Neill. His bushy eyebrows were raised so high they threatened to merge with his hairline. She turned back to the viewscreen. We're on an exploratory mission, seeking to learn about the galaxy and its inhabitants. We're honored to make your acquaintance. There was a pause, and when the alien voice returned, it seemed tinged with amusement. Exploratory mission. How quaint. Tell us, Captain Aria Chen, how did such a primitive species manage to achieve faster-than-light travel? The bridge crew bristled at the condescension in the alien's tone. Aria felt her cheeks flush, but kept her voice level. We may be new to interstellar travel, but humanity has a long history of innovation and perseverance. We'd be happy to share our scientific achievements with you in the spirit of mutual exchange. Another pause, longer this time. Very well, we shall. Indulge your offer. Prepare to receive a delegation aboard your vessel. We are curious to see what passes for technology among your kind. The communication cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Aria turned to her crew, seeing a mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. Well, she said, clapping her hands together, looks like we're hosting our first alien meet and greet. Let's show them what humanity's made of, shall we? The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. The crew scrambled to prepare for their guests, setting up a makeshift reception area in the ship's largest cargo bay. Scientists argued over which technological marvels to showcase, while the ship's chef agonized over a menu that wouldn't poison their visitors. When the Zarquin delegation finally materialized in the cargo bay, the human crew couldn't help but gasp. The aliens were tall, easily 8 feet in height, with bodies that seemed to shimmer and shift like living mercury. They had no discernible faces, just smooth, reflective surfaces where heads should be. Aria stepped forward, hand outstretched in greeting. Welcome aboard the Curiosity. We're honored by your presence. The lead Zarquin regarded her hand with what she could only assume was confusion. A tendril of silver extended from its body, hovering near her palm without touching. Your bacterial colonies are fascinating. Do all humans cultivate such diverse ecosystems on their extremities? Aria blinked, lowering her hand. That's just our natural microbiome. We're not cultivating anything intentionally. The Zarquin made a sound that might have been a scoff. Unintentional symbiosis. How inefficient. Come, show us these achievements you spoke of. We are eager to see what a species barely out of its gravity well considers impressive. As they toured the ship, the cultural divide became increasingly apparent. The Zarquin dismissed the Curiosity's fusion drive as quaint, and seemed utterly baffled by concepts like music and art. When shown a holographic display of Earth's history, from the first use of tools to the modern age, they were unimpressed. Your species seems to rely heavily on physical manipulation of your environment, one Zaraquin observed. Have you not developed psychic technologies, mental interfaces, quantum consciousness integration? Dr. Ilara Voss, the ship's chief scientist, cleared her throat. While we haven't achieved those specific advancements, we have made significant strides in artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and renewable energy sources. The lead Zarquin's surface rippled in what might have been amusement. Ah yes, the fumbling first steps of a nascent civilization. Tell me, do your eye constructs still believe they have free will? Before Ilara could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Aria's communicator crackled to life. Captain, we're detecting a massive energy surge from the Zarquin vessel. The Zarquin delegation seemed unconcerned. Ah, it seems our evaluation is complete. Your species shows potential, albeit in crude, physical forms. We shall take samples for further study. Aria's eyes widened as she realized the implications. Samples? I'm afraid we can't allow you to. But her words were cut short as a blinding light engulfed the cargo bay. When it faded, half of the human crew had vanished, along with the Zarquin delegation. Aria stared at the empty space where her crewmates had been, her mind racing. This wasn't first contact anymore. This was abduction. This was war. As klaxons wailed and her remaining crew scrambled to respond, Aria Chen set her jaw and made a silent vow. They would get their people back, and in doing so, they would show these arrogant aliens exactly what humanity was capable of when pushed to its limits. The cosmos had no idea what it was in for. The human factor, unexpected abilities. 6 months had passed since the Zarquin's abduction of half the Curiosity's crew, and the galaxy was a very different place. Earth had mobilized like never before, pouring resources into space exploration and defense. The ESS Curiosity, once a lone pioneer, was now part of a small but growing fleet of human vessels pushing deeper into space. Captain Aria Chen stood on the bridge of the newly christened ESS Defiant, a ship built for speed and stealth. Her mission: to track down the Zarquin and rescue the abducted crew members. But as they followed the alien trail across star systems, they discovered something unexpected. They weren't the only ones looking for the Zarquin. Captain, we're picking up a distress signal, Lieutenant Petel reported, his voice tight with excitement. It's not human, but it's not Zarquin either. Aria leaned forward in her chair. Source: a small planetoid, about half a light year from our current position. The signal's weak, but it's definitely artificial. Aria exchanged glances with Commander O'Neill. They both knew the risks of deviating from their primary mission, but the potential for new allies, or at least information about the Zarquin, was too valuable to ignore. Set a course, Lieutenant. Let's see who else has a bone to pick with our silver friends. As the Defiant approached the planetoid, they were met with a sight that made even the seasoned bridge crew gasp. The surface was littered with the wreckage of what must have been dozens of ships, all of different designs and apparent origins. And in the center of it all, a structure that could only be described as a prison. Life signs? Aria asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Voss, who had insisted on joining this mission, peered at her scanners. Hundreds, Captain. Multiple species, if I'm reading this correctly. And, wait, her eyes widened. Human life signs detected. Aria was out of her chair in an instant. Prepare an away team. We're going down there. The landing party materialized in what appeared to be a central courtyard of the prison complex. The air was thin but breathable, and gravity was slightly less than Earth normal. All around them, beings of various shapes and sizes huddled in groups, eyeing the newcomers with a mix of fear and curiosity. And then, from the crowd, a familiar voice. Captain, is that really you? Aria spun to see Ensign Zoe Williams pushing through the throng. The young communications officer looked haggard but alive, her eyes shining with unshed tears of relief. "Ensign Williams," Arya breathed, pulling her into a quick embrace. "What happened here? Where are the others?" Zoe's expression darkened. "It's complicated, Captain. The Zarquin, they're not what we thought. They're collectors, catalogers. They travel the galaxy, finding primitive species and experimenting on them." A ripple of murmurs went through the assembled aliens, many nodding in grim agreement. "But something went wrong with us," Zoe continued. "The humans, I mean. We didn't react the way they expected." Before she could elaborate, alarms blared throughout the complex. A voice, unmistakably Zarquin, echoed from hidden speakers. "Attention specimens. Unscheduled visitors detected. Prepare for relocation and enhanced testing protocols." The courtyard erupted into panic. Aliens of all descriptions began running in every direction, some seeking hiding places, others attempting to overpower the newly arrived humans. "Zoe, we need to get out of here now," Arya shouted over the chaos. "Where are the other humans?" Zoe shook her head. "Scattered throughout the complex. But Captain, you don't understand. We can't leave yet. We've learned things here about ourselves, about human potential, things that could change everything." As if to emphasize her point, Zoe raised her hand, and to Arya's astonishment, a shimmering force field sprang into existence around their group, pushing back the panicked aliens. How did you do that?" Arya gasped. Zoe's smile was grim. "The Zarquin's tests awakened something in us, Captain, something they never expected. And now," she gestured to the other aliens, many of whom were now looking to the humans with something akin to hope. "Now we might be these people's only chance at freedom." Arya's mind raced. This changed everything. Their mission, their understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy, perhaps even the nature of human potential itself. But one thing was clear: they couldn't leave these beings to suffer at the hands of the Zarquin. "All right," she said, her voice ringing with determination. "New plan. We're not just here for a rescue anymore. We're starting a revolution." As Zoe's force field pulsed with energy, keeping the chaos at bay, Arya tapped her communicator. "Defiant, this is Chen. Prepare for multiple teleports. We're about to have a lot of guests." And with that, the real adventure began. Humanity was about to show the galaxy that being primitive didn't mean being powerless. The Zarquin had unwittingly created their own worst nightmare. Humans were something to prove, and the newfound abilities to do just that. The cosmic classroom was in session, and class was about to be dismissed, permanently. Alien Academy, humans as teachers. The ESS Defiant hung in high orbit around a nondescript moon in a system far from any charted space lanes. Below, on the moon's surface, a hastily constructed base sprawled across the rocky terrain. It wasn't much to look at, but it represented something unprecedented in galactic history: the first interspecies resistance movement against the Zarquin collective. Inside the base's largest chamber, Captain Arya Chen watched with a mixture of pride and disbelief as Ensign Zoe Williams led a group of aliens through what could only be described as a psychic calisthenics routine. Tendrils of energy danced between the participants, growing stronger and more controlled with each passing moment. "I still can't believe what I'm seeing," Commander O'Neill muttered, shaking his head. 6 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're teaching aliens how to use superpowers." Arya smiled wryly. "Life comes at you fast in space, Jack, but we've got to admit, this is one hell of an opportunity." Dr. Ilara Voss approached, her tablet clutched tightly to her chest. The scientist's eyes were bright with excitement. "Captain, you need to see this. I've been analyzing the data from our students, and it's revolutionary." She handed the tablet to Arya, who scrolled through pages of charts and diagrams. "Talk to me, Doctor. What am I looking at?" "It's not just psychic abilities," Ilara explained, her words tumbling out in a rush. "The Zarquin's experiments unlocked something fundamental in human physiology. We're adapting at an unprecedented rate, assimilating traits and abilities from the various species we've encountered. O'Neill leaned in, his bushy eyebrows furrowed. You're saying we're what? Evolving in real time? Ilara nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. And not just us. The other species here, they're starting to exhibit similar adaptations. It's like humanity is acting as a catalyst for their own latent abilities. Arya handed the tablet back, her mind racing with the implications. So we're not just teaching them our new tricks. We're helping them unlock their own potential. Precisely, Ilara confirmed. And there's more. The Zarquin, for all their advanced technology, seem to be stagnant. They've relied on their tech for so long that they've lost the ability to adapt naturally. That's why they're so obsessed with studying primitive species. They're looking for the key to their own evolution. A commotion from the training area drew their attention. Zoe was helping a Flotian, a jellyfish-like being that normally drifted helplessly in air currents, to manipulate its own personal gravity field. The alien's tendrils waved in what could only be described as joy as it zoomed around the room under its own power for the first time. Arya couldn't help but smile at the sight. Well, they certainly picked the wrong species to underestimate, didn't they? O'Neill chuckled. Humans. Too stubborn to know when they're outmatched, too creative to stay down for long. As they watched, more and more aliens joined the training sessions. There were Krillix with their crystalline bodies learning to refract energy beams, Volcrine shapeshifters pushing the limits of their transformations, and even a group of gaseous nebulites learning to condense their forms for increased mobility. But it wasn't just about developing flashy new abilities. Humans were teaching strategy, tactics, and most importantly, hope. Species that had been subjugated by the Zarquin for generations were beginning to see a future where they could stand on equal footing with their oppressors. So approached, wiping sweat from her brow. Captain, we're making progress, but we're going to need more time. The Zarquin could find us at any moment. Arya nodded grimly. I know. We're working on fortifying our defenses, but ultimately, we can't stay hidden forever. We need to take the fight to them. About that, Zoe said, a mischievous glint in her eye. Some of our new friends have been sharing intel. Apparently, there's an annual gathering of Zarquin elders, a sort of symposium where they share their findings and plan future expeditions. If we could infiltrate that. Arya's eyes widened at the implications. We could potentially access their entire database of knowledge, maybe even find a way to shut down their operations for good. O'Neill stroked his chin thoughtfully. It's risky. We'd be deep in enemy territory with no backup. True, Arya conceded, but think of the payoff. We could free countless species in one fell swoop. Dr. Voss, who had been listening intently, chimed in. There's another angle to consider. If we could get our hands on their research data, we might be able to accelerate our own understanding of these new abilities. Maybe even find a way to safely awaken similar potential in the rest of humanity. The implications hung heavy in the air. The power to revolutionize not just their own species, but potentially every species in the galaxy. It was an opportunity they couldn't afford to pass up. Arya straightened her uniform, decision made. All right, let's make it happen. Zoe, work with our allies to gather every scrap of intel we can on this symposium. Jack, start putting together a team. We'll need our best and brightest for this one. As the others hurried off to their tasks, Arya turned back to the training area. A Volcrine was attempting to mimic human facial expressions, its gelatinous features contorting in ways that were both comical and oddly touching. Nearby, a human engineer was excitedly discussing propulsion theories with a group of Krillix, their crystalline bodies resonating with each new idea. It was a scene of cooperation and mutual growth unlike anything in known galactic history. And it had all started because humanity refused to accept the role of primitive specimens that the Zarquin had tried to force upon them. Arya allowed herself a small smile. The Zarquin had no idea what was coming their way. This unlikely band of misfits and rebels was about to turn the galaxy on its head. Over the next few weeks, the moon base became a hive of activity. Training sessions intensified as everyone pushed themselves to master their new abilities. The humans, for their part, were astonished at how quickly they were adapting. It seemed that each new alien they interacted with unlocked some new potential within them. Dr. Voss worked tirelessly to document and analyze these changes. "It's like our DNA is a universal adapter," she explained during one briefing. "We're not just copying abilities, we're integrating them at a fundamental level and then improving upon them." This became evident in countless ways. Humans working with the Floatians soon developed the ability to manipulate their own personal gravity fields, but with far more precision than their alien counterparts. Those training with acrylics found they could not only refract energy, but also absorb and redirect it in ways that crystalline beings had never imagined. But perhaps most surprisingly, humans began to bridge the gaps between different alien abilities, creating entirely new synergies. It was a petty officer named Malik who first demonstrated this by combining the Volcrin's shapeshifting with the Nebulite's gaseous state manipulation. The result was a form of matter phase shifting that left even the most seasoned alien scientists slack-jawed in awe. As the day of the mission approached, Aria found herself in the base's makeshift strategy room, surrounded by a diverse group of beings, all united in their goal to overthrow the Zarquin. The plan they had devised was audacious, to say the least. "All right, let's run through this one more time," Aria said, her voice carrying the weight of command. Team Alpha, led by Commander O'Neill, will use our newly acquired phase-shifting abilities to infiltrate the symposium's security perimeter. O'Neill nodded, his usually jovial face serious. "Once inside, we'll create a diversion. Something flashy enough to draw attention, but not so alarming that they'll shut down the whole event." Meanwhile, Zoe continued, Team Beta, which I'll be leading, will access their central database. We'll have a mix of our best human hackers and Krillix data interpreters. Our goal is to download as much of their research as possible, and if we can manage it, plant a virus that will cripple their future expedition plans. A Volcrine named Sin, its body shimmering with barely contained excitement, spoke up. "And my team will be standing by for extraction. We've modified a Zarquin shuttle to respond to our biosignatures. As soon as the teams give the signal, we'll swoop in for pickup." Aria looked around the room, meeting the eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, of each being present. "I won't lie to you. This mission is dangerous. We're taking on an enemy that's had millennia to perfect their technology and strategies. But look around you. In just a few short months, we've accomplished what the Zarquin thought was impossible. We've united. We've grown. We've proven that diversity isn't a weakness to be studied and catalogued, but a strength to be celebrated and synergized." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Each of you represents the best of your species. Together, we represent the best of what this galaxy can be. So let's go out there and show the Zarquin that the age of treating sentient beings like lab specimens is over. It's time for a new era of galactic cooperation and mutual respect." A cheer went up from the assembled beings, a cacophony of sounds that somehow blended into a harmonious war cry. As Aria watched her improbable army prepare for the coming battle, she felt a swell of pride unlike anything she'd experienced before. The Zarquin had sought to study the potential of other species. Instead, they had inadvertently created the instrument of their own obsolescence. Humanity, with its unique adaptability and unquenchable spirit, had become the catalyst for a galactic revolution. As the teams made their final preparations, Aria couldn't help but reflect on how far they'd come. From a single Earth ship venturing into the unknown to the leaders of an interspecies rebellion, it was a transformation as profound as the genetic changes they'd undergone. The cosmic classroom was about to take its final exam, and failure was not an option. Galactic tournament, proving ground. The Zarquin Symposium was being held on a massive space station that hung in orbit around a gas giant. As the stolen shuttle approached, cloaked by a combination of Volcrine shapeshifting technology and human ingenuity, Aria felt a mix of anticipation and dread roiling in her stomach. "Status report," she whispered, though in the cramped confines of the shuttle, everyone could hear. Zoe, her hands dancing over a console that was a hybrid of Zarquin and human tech, responded quietly. "We're approaching the outer security perimeter. So far, our disguise is holding." O'Neill, crammed in next to Acrylics, whose crystalline body was refracting light in complex patterns, added, "Team Alpha is ready. We'll create a distraction they won't soon forget." As they drew closer, the true scale of the Zarquin gathering became apparent. Hundreds of ships surrounded the station, each bearing the distinctive mercury-like sheen of Zarquin technology. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "Remember," Arya said, her voice steady despite the tension, "our primary objective is information gathering. We're not here to start a war, yet." The shuttle slipped past the outer defenses without incident, a testament to the effectiveness of their cobbled-together stealth technology. As they docked in a little-used maintenance bay, Arya felt a surge of pride. This ragtag group of species, working together, had already accomplished what the Zarquin would have deemed impossible. The team split up, each moving with purpose born of rigorous training and newfound abilities. O'Neill's group, Team Alpha, headed towards the main symposium hall. Their job was to create a spectacle, something so unusual that it would draw the attention of every Zarquin present. Zoe led Team Beta, a mix of humans and aliens with complementary skills, towards the station's central data hub. Their mission was perhaps the most critical, to extract as much information as possible about Zarquin operations, research, and future plans. Arya, along with Dr. Voss and a small security detail, made their way to the observation deck, overlooking the main hall. From here, they could monitor both teams and coordinate the operation. As they settled into position, Arya's communicator crackled to life. O'Neill's voice came through, tight with barely contained excitement. "Captain, you're not going to believe this. The Zarquin, they're holding some kind of tournament. Looks like they're pitting different species against each other in tests of ability." Arya's blood ran cold. "A tournament? Are these voluntary participants?" There was a pause before O'Neill responded, his voice grim. "Negative, Captain. Looks like they're all prisoners. Wait, I recognize some of them. They're from the group we couldn't evacuate from the prison complex." Dr. Voss, who had been listening in, turned to Arya with wide eyes. "Captain, this changes everything. If we reveal ourselves now, we could potentially free those prisoners." Arya's mind raced. Their carefully laid plans were unraveling before the mission had even truly begun, but she couldn't ignore the plight of those beings forced to perform for the Zarquin's amusement. "New plan," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "O'Neill, forget the distraction. Get your team to the tournament arena. We're going to give these Zarquin a show they'll never forget." As O'Neill acknowledged the order, Arya turned to Dr. Voss. "Doctor, I need you to work with Zoe's team. If the Zarquin are running some kind of twisted Olympics here, there must be data on the abilities they've documented. Find it." Dr. Voss nodded, her fingers already flying over her tablet as she relayed instructions to Team Beta. Arya took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. They were about to announce humanity's presence on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. There would be no going back after this. In the main hall, the Zarquin tournament was in full swing. Beings of various species were pitted against each other in contests that seemed designed to push the limits of their unique abilities. The Zarquin observers watched with detached interest, their mercury-like bodies rippling with what might have been excitement. Suddenly, the arena's force field flickered and died. Before the Zarquin could react, a group of beings unlike any they had seen before materialized in the center of the arena. Led by a burly human with bushy eyebrows, the group was a mix of species, each radiating a power that made the air itself seem to crackle. O'Neill's voice boomed across the hall, amplified by a combination of technology and newfound psychic ability. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all designations, we interrupt this regularly scheduled exploitation to bring you something truly spectacular. You've seen the galaxy's species pitted against each other. Now, see what they can do when they work together. What followed was a display of power and coordination that left even the most jaded Zarquin observer stunned. Humans phased through solid matter, their bodies temporarily adopting the gaseous state of the nebulites. Krillix refracted energy beams, not to attack, but to create dazzling light shows that served as cover for Vulcrine shapeshifters to free the imprisoned contestants. In the data hub, Zoe's team worked with feverish intensity. The distraction in the main hall had diverted most of the Zarquins' attention, giving them unprecedented access to the stations. To that end, Aria continued, "We propose the establishment of the Cosmic Academy of Collaborative Sciences. This institution will serve as a hub for interspecies research, cultural exchange, and the development of new,